yeniden gelelim. Merhaba. Herkese merhaba. If possible, Hiyam, I want to talk in English because some terms I don't know it in Turkish.
Tamam, problem yok.
Teşekkür ederim. Okay. Let me to take the control of the presentation. Tamam. Okay. I will talk about one of the very important topics and one of the hot area of researches now. It is autophagy. Tamam. As we see.
Sesini kapattın Muhammed.
Pardon. I said that I will talk about one of the very important topics related to the hot area of researches. It is autophagy. And as we see now in this picture, Mehmet, I have the control now. Mehmet, pardon.
Denetim sende gözüküyor şu an ama yani geçmiyor.
I cannot change the slide. I can't. Tamam.
Ben de yapamadım ama bir dakika. Şu an basıyorum sunum açılmasına ama sen de basabilirsen şuradaki yere. Ben erişemiyorum.
Tamam.
Şimdi bir değiştir istersen. Deneyelim. Tıklayınca değişim oluyor mu slide'da?
I press the button ama. Evet, tamam.
O zaman ben basayım olmaz. Sen söylersin.
Tamam. Hızlı değil ama tamam. Tamam. The picture now in the slide, it is to one of the Japanese scientists who in 2016 won the Nobel Prize, and that due to his discoveries in autophagy mechanisms and also due to his discoveries in the genes which are responsible for the expression of different types of proteins during the process of autophagy. So let's to start as introduction to this topic.
Do you see the slides on the top?
Do you see
the slide numbers on the top?
Evet. Now the slide changes.
You can press that and to change yourself probably.
Now I pressed it. There is a new slide.
Okay.
Tamam. Biraz yavaş ama tamam böyle. As we know, inside the cell we have different cellular components, and during the time, sometimes we need to degrade that cellular components due, for example, to dysfunction. For example, we can have dysfunctional mitochondria or some problems in the cytoplasm, in Golgi apparatus, etc. So the degradation of one of the cellular components by the cell itself is called autophagy. And as we see now, the definition of autophagy why the slide don't change? Evet. As we see now, the definition of autophagy, it is a process of degrading and recycling the cellular components. Because after the degradation process, the byproducts of the degradation must be reproduced or reused for another purposes inside the cell. And as we see here, this is the general mechanism and general shape of the autophagy process. For example, this is one of the cellular components in a protein shape, and at the end, it is completely surrounded by the autophagosome, and the lysosome at the end infused with the autophagosome, leading to the release of different types of enzymes, and at the end, the protein was degraded to different types of amino acids and other substances. And this is our scientist win the Nobel Prize, as I said before. So we must also know that there are two types of autophagy. One is called non-selective autophagy, and the other is selective autophagy. In the former one, there is no specificity on the degraded protein. You can degrade mitochondria, you can degrade nucleus even, and different components of the cell. But in the selective autophagy, you have a specific target, different types of proteins, maybe dysfunctional mitochondria, maybe peroxisome, maybe different types of lipids. And at the end, the result is same. The result is degraded lysosome and different types of amino acids and protein. And the name of the selective autophagy depend upon the place which degraded. For example, Hadi. Why it doesn't change? Mehmet, I can't. Mehmet, can you try to change the slide? I couldn't. Mehmet?
Mehmet'in sesi kısıldı. Ben buradan deneyeyim mi? Dur. Ama onay vermesini beklemem lazım.
Evet, evet. Ama a lot of. Tamam kardeşim, oldu. Teşekkür ederim.
Hocam kusura bakmayın, internet hızım çok düştü de ben anlayamıyorum dedikleriniz ama şu an netleşti galiba. Tekrar.
Tamam Mehmet, ama bu 4 slide sonra. Can you... Mehmet, go back please.
Okey, tamam. Gidiyorum. Gidebilirsem basıyorum ama gidiyor mu?
Hayır.
Arka arkaya komut veriyorsun. Yavaş olduğu için onların hepsini birden
Tamam.
algılıyor.
Go.
Bir dakika. Çıkmaya çalışıyorum mu?
Denetimi Gülen hocanıza verebilirsiniz aslında. Bizim fakülteden belki daha rahat yaparız.
Tamamdır hocam. Gönderirseniz eğer bana şu üstte. Tamam. Hemen
Tamam,
verdim.
evet.
Tamam. Let's start from here. Problem yok.
Tamam.
Tamam. There is now an important question. We now knew the general concept of the autophagy. Now, what is the significance of the self-digestion by autophagy? Why cell degrade one of its components? There are many benefits for that. For example, Mehmet, can you slide please?
Yani ben yapmaya çalışıyorum ama bende de olmuyor şu an.
Tamam. Oldu galiba.
Tamam. As we know, generally, one of the main sources of proteins is the food. Okay, and when we took a food, the amino acids will be stored in different shapes of proteins, and in some cases, can you change the slide, please?
Mm-hmm.
And in some cases, for example, like starvation or fasting, you need to break down the stored form of proteins to produce new amino acids. And in this case, the autophaging process will play an important role here. Slide next.
Right.
A bit. Now we took one of the stored proteins. Next. Tamam. As we see now, the stored form of protein is degraded into amino acids, and now the amino acids are source of energy and other things like by gluconeogenesis and a source of glucose. So the autophagy, yani the concept now is autophagy during starvation play an important role in degrading the stored protein into amino acids to take them as a source of energy and glucose by the gluconeogenesis process. So the first role is during starvation. Next.
Okay.
Tamam. Also, there are another benefits. One of them, it is very important. It is important during the aggregation of aberrant proteins. For example, in some of the neurodegenerative diseases, such as Alzheimer's disease, Huntington disease, we have many types or different types of proteins which are aggregated. And by autophagy process, we can degrade them, and that will lead to the improvement in the disease. So autophagy play an important process in this thing, and there are many published papers which approve that. Also, one of the very important roles is related to the damaged organelles, such as damaged mitochondria due to reactive oxygen species, or cellular when will be aged, cellular aging. The autophagy play there a very important role. Also, there is a selective autophagy when there is an invasive bacteria, as we will see in some pictures in the coming slides. It's also play a very important role. So, as a summary, we have different physiological, pathological significance. I will start with the physiological roles. It has a role in the intracellular clearance, also in the also in the anti-aging effect, starvation process, organelle homeostasis development, differentiation, and in the antibody presentation. At the same time, it has a role in the pathological significance by blocking the neurodegeneration, liver disease, heart failure, diabetes, microviral infection, and cancer. So now we can know that the autophagy has a very important role and really hot area of research in those different types of diseases. Next, Mehmet. So there are different questions. I try to search for their answer, like what triggered the autophagy? And the first question, what triggers the autophagy? Really, there is no specific answer for this question because أصلا autophagy process happened always in our cells. Tamam, as I said before, it has a role, for example, in starvation, but many factors such as stress may induce this process. Specific types of proteins, as we will see in the coming slides, also can affect the induction of the process of autophagy. Next, Mehmet. Okay, is there any part in the cell cannot be degraded by autophagy? Until now, there is no answer for this question. The nucleus, for example, can be an exception for this process because if you degrade the nucleus, the cell will not go further to their functions. Next, Mehmet. Tamam. Also, one of the questions which are taken by scientists, the question of what's going to happen if there is no autophagy at all. The answer of this question, as we saw before, there will be an effect on the different types of processes, like processes related to immunity, such as infections by bacteria. The starvation process will not happen. The cancer has a very important role here by blocking the autophagy process and then sometimes by increasing the autophagy process. So I put many references. If one of the Arkadaşlar want to see it, he can see it there, or she. Tamam, Mehmet, next. So now, what is the role of autophagy in human health and diseases? Tamam. Okay, the coming slides will be as graphs and figures. Here, for example, this is an experiment in which two types of cells were used. One of them is a normal cell, and the other cell is autophagy, in which the gene which is responsible for the autophagy is defected. So as we see now, the nitrogen after 24 hours for the normal cell showed more concentrations in its total than the autophagy defective genes, and that due to the presence of the autophagy process, which is responsible for the starvation to break down the stored proteins, as we saw before. So this approves what we said before. Second, Mehmet. Also, this is another graph which show two types of cell, normal cell and autophagy defective cell. And the normal cell life, or the viability of the cell, for 5 days, because the autophagy process vary يعني, تمام, and the degradation of protein is present, so there is a source of energy. But for the autophagy defective cell, the viability is less, as we see in the graph. تمام. So that's the first role. The one of the also very important role is the role during the birth of the fetuses. So as we know, yani, during the 9 months, for example, for the humans, I don't know for rats, for example, yani kaçgun olabilir. Ama for humans, we know that we have 9 months. During the 9 months, through the placenta, the fetus have continuous nutrients and continue by the placenta. Ama after the birth, directly there will be an starvation or sudden severe starvation process, and here the autophagy process will be used. So also this is one of the roles of autophagy. Next, Mehmet. Tamam, also this is another experiment in the brain of a mouse. One of them is normal mouse cells, as we see in the above side, and here it is an autophagy deficient mouse. As we see in the lower figures, there is any like red color proteins, as we see, and this is because there is no autophagy mechanism which work, and that lead to the presence of that proteins which are not degraded. But in the normal mouse, there is no something like this. And as a result of that, next, Mehmet. As a result of that, let's to see, these are two rats. The control mouse in the left has the normal cells, tamam? And when it died like by this shape, as we see. But the second one, because the autophagy process is defected, when died by this shape. So the conclusion is that those proteins which are not degraded by the autophagy process lead to defect in even the movement of the rat when it died. Tamam? So that means the autophagy process has an important role in neurodegeneration diseases, as the conclusion of that published paper. Next, Mehmet. Also, this is a role in invasive bacteria. Tamam. This is Streptococcus pyogenes. Tamam. The red color is the DNA of the protein, and the green color is the autophagy specific type of protein called GFP-LC3. Next. This is a graph related to the process. Those are two types of cells. Once the control cells result in less number of bacteria due to the presence of autophagy process, but the autophagy defective cells, the number of bacteria is high because there is no any invasion or attackment by the autophagy process. Next. Tamam. This is showed what we said before. This is our protein, which is called GFP-LC3, and it is a receptor for the lysosome when it binds to the autophagosome for different dysfunctional organelles inside the cell, such as this dysfunctional mitochondria. Next Kardashian. Tamam. This is different types of figures in muscles during birth and fertilization in embryo, showing the importance of autophagy with different comparisons. Tamam, I think the slides was end. This is, I wrote it. Autophagy is a hot area of drugs and researches. Really, I think this topic need a lot of reading. At the starting, when I have this topic, I don't know, and I said to myself, I think it is not very important topic, and what is there? But really, I think different types of researches must be done in this area related to the cardiovascular system, related to the neurodegenerative diseases. But I think also they need some tools such as electronic microscope. Yeah, some tools, I don't know its presence in our university or not, but really, it is very interesting topic, really. At the end, I think there is references, Mehmet. Tamam. Teşekkür ederim dediğiniz için yani.
Teşekkür ederiz Muhammed.
Rica ederim hocam.
Güzel bir sunumdu. Intermittent fasting diye bir şey duydunuz mu? Şu an bu aralar çok revaçta bir konulardan bir tanesi.
Pardon hocam.
Intermittent fasting.
Evet.
Evet hocam.
Tamam, you know well Gulgan. Yani, for example, we as humans, during the 9 months, the fetus through the placenta takes his food. Değil mi?
Evet.
Tamam, continuously, without any stopping. So after the birth, suddenly this source of food will be stopped. Suddenly, after 9 months, suddenly you stop this source of food, of nutrients. That will lead to sudden and severe starvation. So in this case, I need a source of energy. From where I can get this source of energy? From the stored proteins inside the fetus. So how can I degrade these stored proteins into amino acid to take gluconeogenesis, so glucose and source of energy? This process can happen through the autophagy process because it is responsible for degradation of the stored proteins. I don't know now, you get it?
Yeah, I get it. Thank you.
Tamam, rica ederim.
Var mı Gülcan? Yani kaynak bir anda kesiliyor. Yeni beslenme sistemine adapte olana kadar otofaji orada önem kazanıyor.
Anladım hocam. Teşekkürler.
Evet, şimdi Mehmet'e mi geçiyoruz? Hazır denetim ondayken öyle yapalım isterseniz.
Tamamdır hocam. Hemen açayım ben de.